Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. In today's episode, we have a special guest, my incredible Aunt Colleen. She's going to be sharing her story of adoption and her journey to finding her birth parents. The conversation starts now.
Welcome to the Hobson Hour, the podcast where we explore the stories that shape our lives. Each week, your host, Justin Hobson, will sit down with a special guest and talk about the only things that really matter: family, friends, education, and the arts. So sit back and enjoy the ride here on the Hobson Hour.
Awesome. Did it count down on your screen? Did it go like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
Yes, it did.
Wow, I feel
cool.
it feels like it gives you a little bit of pressure, a little more anxiety there. So this is fun. I'm really excited today to talk to you. I kind of wanted to keep today's subject on family. So, my podcast is about family, friends, education, and the arts, and I think you and I could surf probably on each one of those topics, but I wanted to try and stick to family today, more specifically your story of adoption. And I know I sent you some questions to kind of ponder over, and
yes.
I think I sent some questions out to a few of the people that I wanted on the guests as guests for the show, and they were like, "Whoa, those are just like some pretty intense questions, dude." so I hope it wasn't like too much.
No, I thought they were very legitimate and great questions.
Yeah, it was like questions. It's like when you write something or you create anything, you're not going to appease or please everyone, so you quickly just say, okay, well, I want to ask questions or create things that would entertain or be information that I would like to know. Right. So, you know what? If people like it, they like it. If they don't, then go to another podcast.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's very true. And that's the right attitude to have. So,
yeah.
That's all good. It's all
okay.
Good.
So I want to start off.
I'm gonna wear my glasses. So here.
Yeah. Where are your glasses? Let's look official here. Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Well, I want to be able to see.
So. I sent you 3 questions, but I realized within each question there was a question with on top of that or within there. Right. So my first question kind of had to do with how you found out you were adopted. Specifically, how old were you? What were the circumstances? Was it like, oh, I've turned 13 and my parents are going to have this like revelation for me? Or was it something that was always known? Curious about that.
Well, for me, I honestly couldn't even tell you when they told me. There was 3 in my family who were adopted. Mm-hmm. We just knew it, and it wasn't a big deal. I don't even remember when they told me. Mm-hmm. The experience that I had with my little sister, which I thought was exciting or interesting, actually. I was driving with her and my younger brother. My little sister was adopted as well. Uh-huh. There's the older brother, myself, and my younger sister. My little brother, who was not adopted. Mm-hmm. They were 7 and 3. I was driving them by the hospital. Mm-hmm. And my little brother, that he was born in, he goes, "Oh, there's where I was born." He knew that. Mm-hmm. And my little sister popped up and said, "Oh, me too, me too." And my little brother said, "No, you weren't. We got you in Sacramento." And she was very upset about that. And I don't know. She was 3. And I said, she goes, "I'm not from Sacramento." I go, "Yes, you are. You're like Clint and I. We all came from Sacramento." And she was okay with that. It was just being belonging. So yeah. I honestly, I think we always knew my older brother was adopted. I don't know. It's just something that it was.
Yeah,
wasn't a big deal. Not a big deal in our family. So
that's so interesting. Okay, I have a follow-up question. Okay, so how did you got your little brother? I feel like you're a little bit more of an objective mind, where you're just like, okay, whatever, he said this thing. Did your little brother? Did you ever sense that he kind of like, if there was a hierarchy, did he feel because he was bloodborne, or so to speak, that he kind of had that chip on his shoulder, or was it like something that your parents would quickly disabuse them of and be like, no, that's not the case whatsoever. We're all equal here, no matter where you're from.
Well, that's an interesting question because my older brother and I were both adopted. Okay. And we're the big kids. I mean, my brother is 9 years younger, my sister almost 13 years.
Yeah.
And she grew up with him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there was a lot of partiality in her life with my brother because not with my dad, but more with my mom. You know, as my mom wasn't able to have children for many, many years. And so that was kind of like, I don't know. So she has a different experience than my older brother and I. We were both adopted, no big deal. He just was there, and that's how we grew up. And we didn't look anything alike. I mean, he was like 6'7" for God's sake. I was 5'4". You know, back in the day when we were born in the 50s, they said, "Oh, don't tell your children they were adopted." I'm like, you know what? I look at them because my adopted parents were tall and go, "What happened to me?" And it look alike, you know.
Yeah.
So it was probably a good thing, and very hard for people who don't know they're adopted until later in life. They don't do well with that. Not do well with that because then everything they were told was a lie.
It's so interesting to me because when you think of someone who's had to go through being who finds out that they're adopted, I think there's this like stereotype that a lot of us have of people that are adopted because maybe they feel that they're ostracized or whatnot, and that could, like, I don't know, tailspin into some behavior quirks, maybe some interesting life choices. I mean, it literally, genuinely, I think it has like a negative connotation. But you are the opposite of that, and I think I've told you that many times. Like,
it is weird. It is weird.
Yeah, it's like you're of like, so, you know, obviously when you found your birth family, like, you're more level-headed and calm than all the people in our family, and even you were like, well, okay.
I'm not sure why. I don't know. I think it's a combination of the nurture and the nature situation.
Yeah.
You know, the environment in which you come from. Also, there is some sort of DNA issues in there, or I don't know, or how deep that goes.
So, going on to my next question, it kind of has to deal with, I mean, obviously you found your birth family because biologically you're my aunt. When did that choice, or when did that want for you kind of occur, when you were like, okay, I want to make contact, or I want to figure out this mystery of who my birth mother is? When did that start for you, and when did you take action? Because I'm sure there's a time gap between the want and then the action. So I'm kind of curious as to the initial catalyst and the evolution of that, and then you wanting to take action.
Well, and there is, and until you're asking me this, I hadn't really thought about it like that. But you're absolutely right. When I was 13, my adopted mother gave me this piece of paper, and it was basically just details with no names or locations or any identifying information about my birth mother. Minimal about my birth father, didn't quite, but I was more interested in her. Okay, and at the time, you know, I was all into the movie stars, and, you know, I'm like, oh, as it actually said she was very attractive.
Mama's a movie star. I'm coming home, Mama.
She's a movie star.
Yeah.
But what was hard for me, because I guess my older brother had reached out to my mom, and although he and I never talked about it, my adopted brother.
Yeah.
I went and I looked at that, and I realized how young she was when she got pregnant with me, of being 13. I was 13. I was still kind of beating up boys at that time. I mean, it was hard for me to comprehend.
And 13 at that time, I mean, yes. what year was that when she was 13? I think you said
55.
55. I mean, America during 1955, you know, not a popular thing to be a 13-year-old mother, so.
Right.
Yeah.
According to some birth mothers, I'm not want to get off track here.
Yeah.
Being pregnant and unmarried was worse than a death sentence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very sad. So if you wanted me to continue in that respect,
Yeah.
it's I really was curious. I mean, it wasn't like I was looking for a mother. I was just looking for a movie star. I was curious what she looked like. I
Uh-huh.
looked at her, paper said she had blue eyes and her hair was
Yeah.
light.
Yeah.
Well, not me, but but it didn't dawn on me at that point. And it wasn't actually until I got pregnant myself at 22 and a half
Yeah.
or thereabouts and had my son. And
Uh-huh.
I couldn't even fathom taking someone else taking my child. I wanted her to know I was okay. Really.
Well, and that's funny. So, my dad, you guys went two totally different directions with that. So, my dad, for those that are listening, he didn't grow up with his biological father as well. Grandma, your mother and my dad's mom, had a tendency to kind of, I think she was married, what, seven times?
11.
11 times.
I help you out there. I have all the names and their dates. It's in the Bible that she was given when she was in the home for unwed mothers. That she was.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. I told someone, I said just recently, I said, yeah, my grandma, she was married like 7 or 8 times, and they were like, whoa! I can only imagine what their eyes would do if I told them 11. but it's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's. I mean, we come from a family that has a good amount of tragedy, and I think we're a family that you can say we pretty typically you either go, in terms of reacting to that, you either embrace it, find comedy in it, and move on, or you go down another path which isn't so optimistic and positive. So that's what I've always loved about our family. There is a lot of tragedy, but getting back to Dad and his relationship with his biological father, because I was always so curious, like you. I was like, man, I wonder who this man is. I've heard his name was Sam, and there was this picture that existed one time that was in Dad's wallet, but now it's gone, and Dad just felt really like upset about that, and but like anytime I addressed him, he never wanted that that meeting, or that knowledge of who his father was, or that he was fine, that he was okay. Kind of like, your goal of meeting your mom. It's like, hey, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. You were 13 when you had me. Like, I'm healthy. I'm good. But Dad never had that. And it was kind of like, it kind of sucked because I was the total opposite. I think I was more in line with you. Not so much, I didn't want anything from it, but I was just like, I just wanted them to know that we were around. We were, I guess, okay. Right. And I mean, if there was a relationship that could build off of that, then that would be great too. Yeah, it's it was a very like fascinating way in which your journey kind of mirrored my want to find my biological grandfather, but how opposing it was for you and Dad.
And that's not uncommon for guys. In general, in the adoption world that I've been involved with, my older brother was adopted. His attitude was, well, if they didn't want me, then why would I bother knowing who they are?
Yeah.
It also is rejection. Why set yourself up for something that you're being rejected? And this guy was, your dad's dad was. Kind of like when I found out about all my weird stuff, he's an out of wedlock child, an affair child and I remember him saying, who wants to know me? Like his worthiness didn't.
Yeah.
And you understand it differently. It's like, hey, part of who you are. This is the way I look at it. So everybody has their journeys, but I just want to know where I came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who I'm connected to.
It is a fascinating thing, and I thought maybe because Dad was closer to it in a way, maybe with his mom. I don't know, but I knew that I kind of had the same mindset as you did, kind of going into it. But that kind of like leads me into my next question. So you had the catalyst, your son was born, and I mean, and then it was like, okay, I really want to like put feet on the ground and kind of make this happen. I mean, I know it's not a short story. You've written a book, and I eventually want to get to that. But like, what was it like actually marrying meeting this person who is your biological mother with who they are in reality versus what you had in your head?
It's in all honesty, because once my birth mother, realized I saw the crazy grandmother Mabel, she didn't want to see me, because I knew all the things about her that she didn't really want me to know. She didn't want me to know how her life went since me.
So like your point of entry to getting to know her was a big problem for her.
It was a big problem. And I had to write her, or I wanted to write her, to say, I'm not judging you. I don't know what you lived. I don't know your life. I can't judge you. I want to know you. I want to meet you. And I didn't want your journey. Even if I did, it would be different. So once I wrote her a letter and let her know my intentions, I wasn't there to judge her. Then she was okay to see me. Nervous? Oh my gosh. Ooh, yes, I was very nervous. And I swore they gave her told her the wrong baby was her baby. Like,
yeah.
Oh, it was awkward. It was.
How was it for her? So like so from what you've said, you're like super nervous and totally understandable. Were you present enough or objective enough to kind of calculate or to clock how what she was doing? I mean, was there some kind of nervous tick? Was there some kind of behavioral thing that you noticed from that meeting that maybe changed a little bit as you guys kind of communicated more throughout time? What was that like, or what was that observation for you?
Well, when I first saw her, I was 24. Okay, and I brought my young baby son with me, which I probably should have left him at home. And very grateful that he slept through the whole time. And I could tell she wasn't really interested. I mean, she was kind and nice, but not quite interested in.
Yeah.
And not that natural mothering aspect that I felt I was, or that, so I got that right away. She made it extremely clear to me, and pulled no bones about her business was her business. Don't. So it was a very, I think it was numbing for her as well as for me. I mean, she had very nice things to say about me. She said, well, I like the way you look, and I participated in that. And I said, thank you very much. I wish I had those eyes you have, but I didn't get those. It was strained, kind, nice. And I didn't, I was glad I did it. I was hoping to talk to her more, because I knew it was, even though at 24, I knew it was a kind of a strange situation, He never thought she'd ever see me again. And she did tell me that she ran away when I was 10 months old, back to the home to try to get me back. I questioned, she goes, things did not happen how I wanted them. She wanted me. She wanted to keep me. And she had no backing with it. And that's the sad thing about women who've relinquished their children back in the, and even actually, unless you've got a backing of your family or some sort of support system, you don't get to keep your babies.
So she really had, I mean, support-wise, family-wise, do you feel like she had any type of support? I mean, she had really no one.
No.
No. Yeah, to give her the confidence to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe you could do this. I mean, it's a social stigma that you have a kid at this age, but like, no, you can do it.
The parents made those decisions. The mothers did not. At that time, mothers did not.
Yeah.
And so she had no say in it. It was very important to her to meet my mom and dad, my adopted parents. She wanted to thank them. That was a big deal for her.
Yeah. And I remember some from the stories that you told me, that was a scene in.
And I felt like I was like 4 sitting at a big table. My feet didn't touch the floor as they're sitting there talking about me like I wasn't there.
Well, and we should also, for people who are listening, we should describe your adopted parents. I mean, these folks are, I mean, I remember my dad telling me a story about your adopted father, and he was just like, and my dad, I would say, he's a pretty hard man, you know. He's a construction worker for a good chunk of his life and knows what it's like to get his hands, roll up his sleeves and do the work. But like, upon telling me the story of your adopted father, he sounded like he was a little intimidated.
Always, to all of us. You know, my mom and dad were Marines. They're World War II people. They were older parents. And, I mean, they were old enough to be my mother's parents.
Yeah.
You know, and they were very kind to her, hugged her. My adopted mother said my dad was a little uncomfortable with it at first, but he did well, you know. And, you know, we had to be careful because my little sister there was about 12 or 13, and so she.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, Carolyn was just, my birth mother was just a friend visiting. He had no idea who she was, and she sat at the table with us. But it was very uncomfortable. Was there anyone
other than your parents that, I mean, I guess your 12-year-old sisters, did anyone like draw a conclusion by themselves where they're like, wow, Aunt Colleen or Colleen kind of looks a little bit like, physically there's a semblance there or something?
At that age I probably looked more like her than I do now, but no, because I didn't really she wasn't really around. You know, she showed up at my house, invited at the time. Her actions were a little unsettling. But you know, she smoked a joint in my kitchen. And my step.
I can just imagine two Marine parents. You know what I mean? Like
oh my gosh! And my husband at the time really didn't even like smoking, let alone somebody smoking pot. They were sleeping. So that was. Quite your dad and my sister Susan, I can't believe she did that. I knew she was nervous, but not as nervous as I was running around the smell out of the house.
You know, there must have been no thought behind her and that action. It must have been like, oh my god, what can I get to calm me?
Well, I know
this is freaking me out.
I was nervous. That's because it was just her and I talking. My husband at the time was at work, and I knew she, you know, it was difficult to talk because, and I think even in between then she had a different husband from the first time I saw her to this time. And it wasn't that many months. I can't really remember it. It's been a while ago. But, you know, what do you talk about? It was difficult to know what to say to her, you know, because I couldn't say, so how was work? You know, who's my father? I mean, in her defense, it was not as big a deal as it was to me as time went by.
Okay.
Know your heritage. I was more focused on her, and she really wanted to see me to see her as just like a normal kind of mother.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So going and finding lost family, or you know, it's for me such a thrill. So like using ancestry.com and then mixing that with 23andMe, and I was able to find not only Dad's father, my grandfather, but some of Dad's relatives who are, you know, substantially older than Dad, you know. But like once I've got, I don't know if this is kind of like a feeling that you share, but it's like you kind of have so much emotion and anxiety kind of wrapped up into the journey of finding this thing, and then you find it, and then it's like, oh, okay, like you know, it kind of, I don't know if it's like mean to say that it just kind of goes away or it doesn't mean as much as it did, but it's just like it for me felt like, oh, this is just a normal thing. It was such a big thing in my mind growing up of discovering who this person was in my grandfather. But then I did, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, you know, business as usual.
Right. I get that. That's totally right. I
Yeah.
don't think that's uncommon. I don't even think it's weird. I think it's because now you know. Okay, all
Yeah.
you just want to know, and this is what I personally have had a little struggle with growing up. Is people think, oh, you should be grateful, and unfortunately, adoptees are supposed to be grateful. No, they
Yeah.
had no, and I am grateful for my life and the people on both sides
Yeah.
of my families, but
Yeah.
it does not stop you from wanting to know your heritage, where you came from, who
Mm-hmm.
you're connected
Mm-hmm.
to.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean you got to
Mm-hmm.
be boozing buddies with them. You want to know who they are. It is part of
Yep.
you. It is part of what
Yeah.
you should be able to know. Once you have that, then it's kind of like, okay, good. Sometimes you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great way of saying
Yeah,
it. You don't know what to do with it.
right, but
Because like then you meet you build this kind of connection, this loose connection, and then all of a sudden like maybe, and I don't know if you agree with this, like there's an obligation.
yes,
Like you kind
that's
of have
true.
this like, oh
Yeah, it is a
yeah,
thought. It's like, okay,
and
what's going to happen with it?
what's gonna happen? Yeah, what should I be reaching out more? Da da da. And like yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. But I do think it's an important like hallmark in your life. If this is your story, you know, like fulfill that chapter, and then you could kind of move on to things that are more meaningful, which is kind of what you did. I mean, I don't know if this is how you see it, but like you all of a sudden decided to write a book about it. You know, and to your credit, and I think this is something that's admirable and probably lost on my generation, maybe not my generation, maybe just to me, but like you journal. You're a very avid journaler.
Yeah.
And then when you told me that, I was like, oh, of course. Well, you've got all the ammunition to,
Right.
you know, kind of go through this thing and make it into a book that kind of goes from beginning to end, you know. So how was that? When was that? How was that? Like, what inspired you to take that leap to start your own book about it?
Well, I think a lot of it was your dad, my brother,
Mm-hmm.
even our sister Susan. It's because the story was so weird and bizarre, and if I hadn't experienced it myself, that not necessarily only searching for my birth mother, that was pretty. I was very grateful and fortunate for a very talkative, you know, social worker. You know,
Yeah.
back in that day, because it was against the law, right? Uh, I started from my birth father, which I'm rewriting that aspect right now, and it brings up an important thing when you're saying, "Okay, I found out what do I do with it?" So
Mm-hmm.
I finished my book, the first book that I wrote in 2009, because I had
Mm-hmm.
information. I was writing as I went, and it's only because it was such a bizarre story, and I had help from my birth mother, and
Mm-hmm.
does, and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, who finds their people, their birth family, with the help of some birth person's not here, you know? So it's not your typical adoption story. So they said, you got to write about it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Now what I'm dealing with now is like, okay, the story's been finished at that time, totally finished. And I'm like, it's almost like you made that comment as saying, okay, what do I do with it? Okay, I know now. I know all this stuff. But I'm like, okay, you can't stop now. You got to finish the story. But
Yeah.
it's more
Yeah.
of a struggle because I already know. I know it all. It's all done. It's all good. I got all the scoop. So what do you do with it? I guess you write a story.
Yeah. It's almost like an
Yes.
obligation, you know? It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's because it's like, yeah, you button it up and you're good and you've got all the knowledge that you need to kind of move on with your life. But then it's like almost a part of you recognizes that, hey, this might be able to help somebody else who's kind of going through a similar situation. And I mean, also informative for people who don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. I mean, just reading your first book, I was just like, wow. Oh, I mean, it just gave me insight into your experience in a way that I don't think I would have ever really fully appreciated until reading it from your perspective. But that's kind of, and you touched on something interesting here, and we kind of glazed over it. Another cool feature that I never knew about you. We'll get kind of back to your book, but like you used additional help to to facilitate a lot of the discovery of not only your birth mom, but your biological father. Right. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of, maybe where did that start for you? Because you are so, and I mean this as like, I guess a compliment, but like, you're so not the person who I could just like, see being like a medium or a psychic. You get that stereotypical version in your head of someone with a crystal ball, and it's like, you were so blasé about it, and you were like, hey man, like if you don't talk about it, we don't talk about it,
Well, yeah. It is a very fascinating experience, and I don't believe there's ever mistakes. I believe things are meant to be because they are,
Yeah.
And so, my birth mother, your grandmother, she passed without telling me who my father was. So I had to go back to the crazy grandmother, which basically she didn't really know either, but she thought she knew. Okay, so anyway, I started going to intuitives with my sister and just trying to ask anybody. I was like
fill in the gaps. Like,
what can you give me? So I'd get tidbits all the time. And I would act on them. Then I learned to dowse with a pendulum. That was purely accidental. Somebody asked me to go to a class. I did. My adopted mother lost her keys, and she was, get your little thing out. You'll find my keys. And lo and behold.
And did you?
We did.
Were you?
I took a different perspective on this whole dowsing thing. Started using it to my advantage.
Yeah.
Carolyn, my birth mother, comes to me and spells to me my direction of my journey. It took 7 years, but she led me all the way. Sometimes it wasn't right, but it was a journey, all part of, there was maybe one way, a catalyst to go some other way, but it's hard to talk about that to people who don't quite experience that. I mean, I'm going to a writing class, and I kind of make light of it. My folks on the other side, wherever they hang out, because I don't really know where they are. But it has helped me, and I'm so grateful. And the journey is really about forgiveness. The whole journey is about forgiveness. But I didn't catch that. I was all about, who's my father? Who's my daddy? That kind of thing. Yeah. But there's more to it. And that's why, like you said, I have to finish it to really put her story out there. Know the story.
I feel like it's, there's a strong bias that I think I have because we always talk about Carolyn, my grandmother, your mother. And I mean, we've definitely talked about your biological birth father, but I was just like, wow, I don't think I have given that journey the respect, because that has actually, I feel like, has taken up, and correct me if I'm wrong, that has taken up more time, energy, and effort and emotional toll to kind of tackle than Carolyn.
Well, Carolyn took me 2 months to find her. Okay. And that's back when they didn't have computers. Okay. But like I said, I had the help of asking questions to a social worker, and she would answer yes or no. It took me 7 years, almost 8 years, to find out who my birth father was. Through many ins and outs, and the people that you meet along the way, the things that you experience along the way. And so I realized it was kind of like, couldn't you just cut to the chase and tell me who the guy was? Yeah. I think when she was here, she really wasn't sure. So just based on looking at me at that particular moment. And I think I needed to go on this healing journey, not only for myself and other people I came across, but for her.
Yeah. Well, gee, he's like, thanks, birth mom. I'm helping you heal here and also trying to figure out the rest of the situation, Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like adopted people, when they go on the search that you've gone on, maybe sometimes it's easy. Like, for example, when I went and we found Dad's sister, Aunt Diane, she was just very like, hey, oh my God, you're here. Wow, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, you look just like my dad. Like, to, drawing comparisons physically. And then, you had some kind of a little bit of a rocky road with Grandma Carolyn, but like you said, it took you 2 months, and then you kind of got that. But I think what's interesting is you also, like a lot of adoptees trying to find biological parents, you face in a huge effort, a challenge in some of the members that were surrounding your biological father, or though maybe someone who you thought was your biological father, and them not, I guess, having the open mind of like, yeah, maybe this could be, but it was like much more volatile,
Right. And for a lot of adoptees, since back when I was adopted, you don't have names or who they are or what they are. And so we go by looks, we go by, it's depends on what state you live in to what
yeah,
you can get. It was a lot of rejection, and I believe being adopted, even though I hate to even admit this, that
yeah,
rejection is, even as a small baby,
mm-hmm.
they say babies, they have memory to some degree, and so you don't quite know what your triggers are, what your situation is. So when you're rejected as a baby by being taken away from your birth mother, and back then babies went to foster care before they could be adopted out. So you had a few mothers before you got whoever was going to keep you, if they were going to keep you. So attachment, rejection, loss. And when you are on this search of trying to find your people, not everybody wants to be found. Not everybody wants to be, it's on both sides. Birth mothers looking for their children, and the kids like, I don't want anything to do with you. There you have, and we are still that baby that they gave up. They're strangers to us. So the male part of it, they don't know, really, who do you belong to? And fear of the unknown, the Pandora box.
Yeah.
Of it. So they're not just it's a rarity that, you do see it on TV every so often. Oh gosh, it doesn't always go that way. And I know many people in the search for their families, and 23andMe, and the with Ancestry. It's the tool. Also has been a hard tool for a lot of people, because a lot of people find out, oh, you're not my people that I thought.
Yep.
So there's the pros and the cons of it. But very helpful in my search, very helpful in a lot of an adoptee search.
I kind of wanted to go back real quick. So, for your adopted siblings and your family, with your adopted family, when they found out, okay, like, you've met your mom. First off, let me. Did all of your adopted siblings have a similar? I mean, were they able to have that success, or did they even want to find their adopted or their biological parents?
Let me tell, like my mom, my adopted mother, was very helpful. And said, if I were you, I would want to know where I came from. My dad was a little bit. My brother was adopted. His attitude was, if they didn't want me, I don't want to know who they are.
Right,
he was afraid of rejection, but I didn't realize until I started looking for my birth father that my older brother already set up, and my mom kept saying, my adopted mother, he bit me. And I go, no, he couldn't. He was too little. How could he have teeth?
Yeah.
As a father, new father, you have your little son, right?
Yeah.
Say how much you've gotten to know him in these 2 months. And babies are then swapped off to somebody else. But Clint, my older brother, did not want to have anything to do with it. My younger sister, Wendy, I started going to a lot of support groups where I talked with birth mothers and adoptees, and my gosh, sit in a room as a mother myself to these mothers bawling about losing their baby. And I said, oh, you have to find your birth mother. So, we're in California, you don't have anything. But fortunately, Alma, who is now just stopped after all the hundreds of years, they're the first search group around. They found her mother right away.
Wow.
Because remember, we don't have any names or numbers or anything.
Yeah.
That you were born. And But on your birth certificate, that number never changes. Your name may change, but that number doesn't.
Right.
And so she found her birth mother.
Yeah.
And does she hang out with her? No. Does she talk to her? No. It's scary. Siblings are safer. Like I can talk to your dad. I can talk to Susan. You don't feel that betrayal of your adopted family.
Well, that, I guess, was kind of leading into my question of what did that discovery of your biological mom do to your, family nucleus? I mean, what, if anything, did it, was there antagonistic feelings like, oh my gosh, she's trying to find her mom. Why isn't she just happy that, with what we got kind of thing? Or, wow, like you did it. I want to do it too. I mean, like, I guess that was the point of that question, in terms of what was that experience like for them, you being, I mean, were you one of the first ones to find your adopted?
Yes, yeah. All the way around. And my older brother knew the story because he's a couple of years older than I. But the ironic thing that you bring in back to my memory is when my little sister's mother came to visit my mother, who was much older, my adopted mother, my older brother came up. It was like we had a little party type of thing, a little gather.
Yeah.
My older brother could not look at her. I don't know why. I thought he just couldn't look at her. So I knew there was some emotions attached to him because he doesn't know. And my mom did nothing, my adopted mother did, to encourage him. Oh, if you want to, I'll help you. I'll do whatever. He goes, nope, don't want to know. I mean, he's got the same piece of paper as we all do.
Yeah.
You don't, it's everybody handles it differently. But the sense of you don't want me, I'm rejected. There's a lot of adoptees. It's based on how the adopted parents handle their kids. You have a good home life for the most part, even though my dad was scary and strict. But he told us he loved this and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
But you come with that structure. A lot of adoptees, especially back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, you're supposed to have kids. So people were adopting kids whether they wanted them or not. And there were like excessive babies. It was kind of a running thing. Am I grateful I am? You bet. Brother or your dad or my brother or dad, and to say, oh, you're the lucky one. I would not have their spot. So for me, it was good. For not all adoptees, it goes that way.
Well, and I was kind of focusing on your side of the family, right? In terms of how your brothers, adopted brothers, and even your biological sibling, how your journey affected them. Now, kind of going on to the other side of the camp, where you've discovered your biological. How, in your experience, was that for them? I mean, what was it? I mean, were they antagonistic? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but for those that don't, like, what was that experience like for them and also you?
Well, I have to say the best thing that Carolyn did, my dear grandmother, she didn't keep me a secret from them. So I was very fortunate because they knew they had another sibling out there. Another sister, the redheaded freckled sister they were looking for that I'm not.
Well, I remember my dad had a comment. What was that when he first met you?
It's like, well, my hair was darker and dark.
Yeah.
No, something's not right. And I'm sure when Carolyn saw me, she thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Like anything like we thought you might look like.
Yeah.
But it was a big, big plus for all three of ours relationship. Wasn't a secret. So it was like, well, losing the order of the family, as you understand. I'm the older sister was out there. They knew the situation. Now Carolyn wouldn't talk to them about me too much, but they knew I existed. So they were very excited to see me. And Carolyn.
So you didn't come in with like a whip and said, "All right, new siblings here. Sorry, Aunt Susan, you're replaced. This is how it's gonna go."
No, they were. I have to say they both, and especially your dad. They were
Yeah.
both so very welcoming, and
Mm-hmm.
Carolyn wanted me to make sure because I spent a lot of time with your dad first, and his and my personality are similar, more similar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, but she wanted to make sure that I spent time with Susan as well, which I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
did.
Yeah.
And I in reality, I love my adoptive siblings. My close my
Mm-hmm.
sister,
Mm-hmm.
I'm around them, but I probably am closer to my birth family side in some respect, very much so. You
Yeah.
guys,
I've
your
n-
dad, yeah,
yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't witness your relationship with your adopted siblings and whatnot, but I'm closer to you than some of my
right,
other,
yeah,
family. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing, and it has always been kind of a cool thing, to witness all three of your relationships and to say,
yeah,
wow, like,
yeah,
I mean, they missed out on the first like 22
yeah.
years of your life, but here you guys are, like you're on a WhatsApp thread and they're blowing your phone up early in the AM talking about God knows what, you know?
But I don't want to change that because
Yeah.
you just you can't go back and get what you miss, and
Hmm.
I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I have that. I wouldn't change it, and I'm it's been years. I mean, I can't even imagine them not being in my life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
so I like again, it's the sibling thing. It's a little safer, and I wasn't a surprise to them. That is
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a key thing right there, from
Hmm.
my experience of other adoptees.
Yeah, I mean I'm excited to get them on the podcast and kind of talk about that too and get their frame of reference. I mean, like I've talked to Dad pretty
Hmm.
extensively, and it's right in the vein of how you
Right,
describe it, which is pretty
right.
fun. I remember reading your book and you kind of documenting that first encounter. I was like, I could see it all. Here's my dad, a rebar
Yeah,
worker, kind of tough, gruff, a
yeah,
little bit too
yeah,
tan, from working out in the sun, and then with what he had said to you, and
yeah. It,
it- kind of just his character. It fits.
right. I,
But it's also sorry. Go
it's
ahead.
nice. That's all good.
I'm curious how this all sums up for you. I mean, how do you feel it's, I guess, defined who you are today? How do you? Is that
Yeah,
easy to
I
tackle? Yeah. Okay.
tackle, but I'm still
Yeah.
trying to figure out defining myself today. But I understand what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
yes, because I can't imagine not knowing that. I can't. It's
Hmm.
almost incomprehensible for me to think, oh my, I don't
Yeah.
know who my birth mother is. I don't know who my birth father is. Does it change my life? Totally, entirely. And
Right.
you have more people to love, more people to, I don't know, get irritated with. It's all part of the journey. It, it's
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
what we have. And, in our hearts, we have room to love so many people.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
grateful that I have that experience. Am I sad what my birth mother went through? You bet. Especially as I get older.
Yeah.
She was young when she passed. And, here we are learning, watching all the changes with you. How could you not love?
Right.
And so
Right. Right.
I couldn't even fathom missing out on all of that.
Well, I mean, and it's just been such a plus for me, and for the kids and the children of you guys, of our
Right.
aunts, and
Exactly.
and it's like because we have that same relationship, like how you were kind of talking about having that
Right.
bond with Dad and Aunt Susan, and you still have a great relationship with your
Yeah.
adopted siblings, but it's the same thing for us. I mean, my relationship with Veronica, Aunt Susan's daughter, is so strong, and it's, I mean, like, I'm obviously not super close with Matt, your son, but like I have such an admiration and respect for him and his family and everything that he
Right.
does. So it's a pretty cool thing. I guess I kind of want to end, if you let me, on this is a curveball I'm throwing
Okay.
at you. I haven't
Oh, that's
prepared you for this yet. Okay. What advice would you give to people who are in your shoes when you were 22 who are maybe a little intimidated about the journey, but kind of want to take the step that you did and discover who those birth parents are? What advice would you give maybe to those individuals?
Well, I would think if the desire is there, you need to follow through with it, because you regret it if you don't. I mean, you have to have a bosom buddy. You're not looking for a replacement family. Again, as I said, we can love many people. And yes, you could be rejected. I mean, that's the chance you take. But at least you know where you came from. And I think it's just part of who we are.
I love that. And then lastly, what advice would you give to those who are surprised by the new knowledge that there's this person who is biologically related to them that they never knew about? What advice would you give them on their initial reactions, or how to handle or go about that process of discovery?
Well, again, I think I would just keep an open mind and see how it fits with each individual, because everybody has a different take on it, a different feel. What do they want? Am I willing? It doesn't mean you have to love them like you love the person you grew up with.
Right.
They are a part of you. And it's hard for many people to have a person step into their world, as you well know. And it's, you take it as it is. You take it for what it's worth and how each of those individuals can handle it without being mean, because there's a lot of rejection. It's hard. Personalities, you know?
Yeah. Aunt Colleen, I love you. I am so grateful for you being on. I was talking to Tom. She's like, don't say it's your first episode, because you could like mix it up and put it somewhere else if you have to. But this is the first podcast, and I can safely say that you will probably be on many of these podcasts.
I actually and I think you've done a really nice job. Thank you.
I'm continually excited by your journey. You've got this book coming out. You're always doing something that provokes my interest, and want to continue expanding and growing myself. So yeah, I know, hopefully, if you're okay with it, that you will be back. And there's a lot that we kind of glazed over and we kind of packed into, this hour, but I'm grateful that you kind of surfed and just, hung on. So
to the next time.
Yeah. Okay. I will let you go. And
I'm
grateful for you.
Love you, buddy. All
right. Love you. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, or, leave a rating and review. Up to you. Thank you so much. And until the next episode, bye.